The clock radio blinked 12:17 a.m., its digital glow slicing through the darkness of our bedroom. I pretended to be asleep, my back to the door, but every fiber of my being was screaming. I'd been lying there for hours, replaying the same gut-wrenching scene in my head. The picture of her car pulling into the driveway 10 minutes earlier than usual. 10 minutes earlier than the time she told me she'd be home from her late shift at the hospital. The mattress dipped beside me. A familiar weight. Yet tonight, it felt alien, repulsive. I could hear her breathing, the gentle rustle of her clothes as she slipped under the covers. It was a sound I'd once found comforting, the rhythm of our lives intertwined. Now it was the sound of betrayal. I didn't move, didn't dare give away that I was awake. Every muscle in my body was clenched so tightly, I was afraid I might shatter. I could practically taste the metallic tang of anger and hurt rising in my throat. I waited, breath held, listening as she settled beside me. A silent trespasser in our shared space. Then I heard it. A soft gasp, a sharp intake of air. Her breathing hitched, then stopped altogether for what felt like an eternity. I almost couldn't help myself. The urge to reach out to comfort her was immense. But then I remembered the text messages I'd found, the ones I shouldn't have seen, and the urge was extinguished by a cold wave of disgust. She'd found the letter. I rolled over, forcing myself to look at her. The pale moonlight streaming through the window illuminated her face, her eyes wide with a terror I had never seen. She clutched the single sheet of paper like it was a poisonous snake. Her lips trembled as she began to read the words I'd painstakingly written, each carefully chosen, each laced with the pain she'd inflicted on me. The letter wasn't about anger, not really. It was about the hollow ache in my chest, the feeling of being utterly alone in my own marriage. It described the way the light had gone out of our home, replaced by a cold, unfamiliar chill. It spoke of shattered trust, of a future I could no longer envision with her. And it ended with a single, devastating sentence. "I know about him, ally." She looked up at me, her face a mask of fear. How do you know?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Does it matter?" I asked, my own voice flat and devoid of emotion. I'd imagined this moment 1,000 times over the past few weeks, each scenario ending with me screaming and yelling, maybe even crying. But in the cold, harsh light of reality, I was calm, eerily so. She didn't answer. She just stared at the letter, like it held the answers to all of life's unsolvable questions. "It doesn't matter now," I continued, my tone low and steady. "I've known for weeks, ally. The late shifts that weren't, the hushed phone calls, the perfume that wasn't mine. It's over." Tears streamed down her face, silent, helpless. "Please, Steve, please don't," she begged, her voice cracking. "I made a mistake. A mistake." I repeated the word, tasting it like ash in my mouth. "No, ally, this wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated decision, one that you made over and over, each time betraying me, betraying us. And now you have to live with that." I rolled out of bed and began to dress. The silence between us was thick with unspoken words, with recrimination and regret. The woman in front of me was a stranger. I couldn't reconcile the loving, caring wife I thought I knew with this deceitful version before me. "Where are you going?" she finally asked, her voice small and weak. "To pay a visit to someone," I replied, pulling on my shoes. I didn't elaborate. I didn't need to. She knew. The drive over to his place was a blur. I didn't know how I got there. Every mile was a knife twist. Every passing car a reminder of the happiness I'd been so carelessly denied. By the time I parked outside his house, my hands were shaking, my knuckles white from gripping the steering wheel so tightly. The anger was building, a raging inferno within me, ready to explode. He answered the door in a t-shirt and shorts, a smug look plastered across his face, the look I'd seen in the photos on Ally's phone. He was a caricature of everything I wasn't. Young, cocky, devoid of any decency. "Can I help you?" he asked, that smug grin never faltering. "I think so," I responded, my voice low and menacing. "I'm Steve, Ally's husband." His face went pale, the smugness replaced with a flicker of fear. He tried to slam the door, but I was too quick, jamming my foot in the opening. I pushed my way inside, the raw, animalistic fury I'd been suppressing finally unleashed. "You've been sleeping with my wife." The words came out as a venomous hiss. I wanted him to know what he had done, to see in his face the destruction he'd caused. He tried to deny it, stammering and stuttering, but I wasn't listening. I grabbed him by his shirt collar, pulled him close. "You think you can just waltz into someone else's life and take what isn't yours? You thought you could get away with it?" My voice shook, not with fear, but rage. I was finally seeing red. I didn't say much more after that. I just let go of all the frustration and hurt I had been harboring, and beat him. I beat him until my knuckles were split and bleeding, until he was curled on the floor, whimpering in pain. I didn't care. He deserved it, and in that moment it felt good, cathartic even. I left him there, a broken mess on his living room floor, and walked out into the night. The air was cool, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. But the fight I'd had did nothing to ease the pain of betrayal. I'd gotten my revenge, but that hadn't fixed anything. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and a slow, agonizing dismantling of our life together. Ally moved out. She tried to talk, to apologize, to explain, but I couldn't bear to hear her voice. The image of her clutching that letter, the look of terror in her eyes, was a constant reminder of what we'd lost, or rather what she had thrown away. News of her infidelity spread like wildfire. It was a small town, after all. The whispers followed her, the judging stares a constant reminder of her shame. Her friends, our friends, abandoned her. The life she had, the life she so easily risked, crumbled around her. His life wasn't spared either. Word got out. His reputation as the town's new boy turned him into the town pariah. He lost his job, his friends, his social standing. He couldn't show his face in public. I, on the other hand, had become a sympathetic figure, the wronged husband, but that's not how I felt. I was empty. Even now, years later, the phantom pain still lingers. Sometimes I wonder what went wrong, when we started to drift apart, when our love started to die. But then I remember the letter, the look on her face, and I know some things can't be forgiven, and some wounds never truly heal.